to as archons, i.e. non-human entities manipulating our world through these networks that we talk about and expose. So the Christians talk about demons, exactly the same thing. In the Islamic belief system, they talk about jinn, same thing. In Central America, shaman talk about the flyers, same thing. In the Zulu culture of South Africa, they talk about the Chitahuri, same thing. It's a universal theme. And what these entities, another universal theme, feed off is the energy of death and suffering. You know, when that's your energy source, what do you want to do? You want to create more and more of that energy source. So what happens? You create a society, a fake reality, a matrix that is designed, and a hierarchical structure of power and imposition that is designed to create maximum amounts of that energy.
Well said, DavidIcke.com.
So many wars.
We've got to go to break. I'm going to give you the floor when we come back. 18-minute segment coming up. We know the history we're given is not the real history of what's happened on this planet. The elites themselves are obsessed basically with what you see in the movie Prometheus. That's what MIT and Harvard, even the New York Times, the majority of their scientists believe that the planet was terraformed, that we were put here. The elites believe that they're another species from us. That's in the BBC and other major publications. This is what they believe. And then you've got David Icke, a top news presenter, making millions of pounds over the years, very successful, a shining star in the UK media, the head of the Green Party, and he basically, like, I guess you could say, like Saul of Tarsus on the road to Damascus, gets knocked down, heat stroke, whatever you want to call it. I want him to talk about that briefly, and suddenly has all this information. And again, he didn't have a motive to do all this when he was already on top. He was ridiculed for a decade intensely, was like the joke. He can tell you the story, but I followed it. And so regardless, he's got amazing courage, and so much of what he said, scientifically, politically, has come true. And I want to cover the waterfront, because it's hard to get David Icke on. He's a busy guy. Maybe he can stay a few minutes in the next hour, but that was a short segment, David. I want to give you the floor about what's at the bottom of the rabbit hole, and then tying it in. But you look at the environmental movement. It ignores genetic engineering. It ignores nuclear reactors, 90% leaking. A new one in the U.S. had an explosion, and they shut down a reactor. It's not even hardly news. The elite themselves don't care about the planet, but they have a predatory hatred of their fellow humans and are teaching us that human life is worthless, and teaching us not to stand up for each other, and teaching us this inverse. They say the star symbolizes a human, the head, 2 arms, 2 legs. The pentagram is a human upside down. But they're selling this, and I see this glare in people's eyes who've succumbed to this spirit of the world versus those of us that, not that I'm perfect, more and more are going towards love and freedom and compassion and being empowered. So I see an acceleration towards a paradox where there's a huge amount of people awake and intensifying their understanding, but also a large group of people that are going to get crazier and crazier and more turned over to this crazed spirit. David Icke, you've got the floor for the next 15 minutes.
Thanks, Alex. I wish I had made millions at the BBC. Yeah.
But you were one of the top people in the country, according to mainline news articles.
Yeah, I was on the television a lot, but millions, my goodness me. You used to wear BBC jackets, small checks, But anyway, what we're talking about here is, I would suggest, where the alternative media needs to start turning its head, because much of the alternative media, and I'm not knocking it, I mean, hold my hand up. Anyone who's putting out information that's suppressed and this network doesn't want out, round of applause, I say. But much of it is walking around the edge of the rabbit hole. It's not actually in it yet. So deep does it go. We have a situation where to answer your question, and people say this all the time, why would they destroy the planet? Why would they have the Fukushimas? Why would they be filling our atmosphere with staggering millions and millions of times more radiation than there was 50 years ago? Why are they creating this, transformed radiation atmospheric reality? What about the chemtrails and their part in all this? What's going on? Why would they do this? Because we have to, I would suggest, face the fact that we are being manipulated and this planet is being taken over. This reality of ours is being taken over by entities that operate beyond human sight. And human sight is so narrow, it's almost laughable, what scientists call visible light. It's a tiny, almost infinitesimal fraction of what there is to see. And because we, through these biological computers, can only see a certain, just ridiculously, I can't tell you, narrow frequency band, which we see as a visual world, it means that anything that is on a different frequency to that band, which is in effect everything else that exists, we can't see. And these entities and this force operates outside of our, most of the time, outside of our frequency band that we can actually see. But what it does, because it's an inversion of the natural order is about love, it's about balance, it's about harmony. So what we have is an inversion of the natural order. That's their world. I mean, this is where the religions talk about, you know, the hell and all that stuff. And what they're doing is seeking to change our world into theirs so they can take it over. And what they've done up to this point is create a network of hybrid interbreeding bloodlines that we call royalty, right back into history. Why were the royals, of all the cultures, claiming the right to rule? Because of their bloodline. Because it was the bloodlines, as they saw it, of the gods, which is how they perceived these entities. And then when the people started to reject over royal dictatorship, they went into the dark suits. They became the bankers, the major politicians. They became the corporate heads. They became the people that run our society, our world, both in the world that we can see and in the shadow.
Now, from your view, are they interdimensionally possessed, like the Bible would say, or are they actually genetically hybrids?
Well, both, for this reason. What we've got, as I mentioned earlier, what we've got to start to realize, if we're going to grasp this situation that we're facing, is what we see as a three-dimensional world, solid world, i.e. the body, is a projection. Exactly what these scientists are talking about. It's a projection. It's a projection from the base form, which is the energetic field. Just as these pictures on a computer are a decoded representation of information in other forms within the computer. Therefore, what we are experiencing is a fake reality, because what we are experiencing as a three-dimensional world is not the place of love and harmony and balance that it should be, but an increasing inversion of it, which is what? The opposite of that. Because these entities feed off the frequency of death, because everything has a frequency, of suffering, of deprivation, of fear. This is the major four-letter word that controls the world. It means that to take over our reality, they have to generate maximum amounts of that energy. So they have structured society through these bloodlines that end up in the positions of power to create maximum amounts of that energy. So look through known human history. Endless wars, endless suffering, endless deprivation, hunger, destruction, getting more and more all the time. And what they're doing is imposing their world, their inverted world, upon us. And the more they do so, the more power they have to influence this world, because we're getting closer in frequency to where they are. And so when you look at the word live, what is the word live inverted, written backwards? Evil. What we call evil is just an inversion of the natural order of life, of joy, of love. And the idea is that they eventually so transform our energetic frequency state that our world literally becomes theirs, and they won't even need their bloodlines then. What we need.
So you're saying it's like an avatar. They've got humans that operate as their Earth suits. They want to change the atmosphere, like terraforming us, to then take over completely.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain movies, in fact, more and more movies, Alex, that actually mirror this and what's happening. Now, classically, what I'm describing in terms of this fake reality that we decode and believe, therefore, to be real is the Matrix. The world depicted by the Matrix trilogy is absolutely the one that we live in its theme. And then you rightly talk about the Avatar movie, which again was mirroring reality. What happened there? You had the Navi society, the Blue People Society, that was taken over by people that looked outwardly as if they were the Navi, the Blue People, but actually within that form, that outer form, was the force in the Avatar movie that was taking over that reality. And that's what we're experiencing. And this is why I say, with as much a passion as I could muster to the alternative media, you know, what's been done so far in uncovering the 5 sense level of this is brilliant, fantastic, round of applause, you know, punch the air, let's have a cheer. But if we're going to understand how we're manipulated ultimately, and therefore create an understanding of how not to be deep in the rabbit hole, we've got to start opening minds to the fact that what's happening with the banking system and ISIS and engineered wars and engineered banking crashes and engineered political systems is the play out, the projection, which is there to manipulate our society within the holographic world that we experience, but actually where it's coming from is beyond human sight. And this is very difficult for people to grasp, because from cradle to grave, all this stuff is ridiculed and dismissed as crazy. Now, let me ask this question. If this stuff is so crazy, why do these people, in their satanic rituals and their secret society rituals, the deep, extreme ones, why do they interact with another force beyond human sight? They're interacting with what? What Christians call demons, what the Islamic world calls jinn. They are interacting with these entities. That's why they do it. And in terms of possession, everything is a frequency. Thus, what your type of genetics is dictating the frequency of your body, your biological computer. Therefore, those hybrid bloodlines that have a far, far greater infusion of this archon, if you like, demonic, whatever you want to call it, genetics in the hybrid, that means that their frequency is much closer to that of these entities. Thus, they become possessible on a scale that even the mass of humans are not possessible in that frequency sense.
So you're saying they're basically drivable. They have the software to interface.
Exactly. What these bloodlines are, Alex, is basically a particular type of biological computer which allows these entities, which have no empathy, which feed off death, which glory in death, which love death, for which death is their reality. They are vehicles for these entities to manipulate our world. So when you look at these bloodlines and how they can create mass murder in what we call wars, how they can do the unbelievable things they do that create the shocking, unspeakable terror, horror, and suffering that they do,